Continuing our discussion on using Metasploit to do exploits, I've renamed my file to something sensible like vulnserver.rb, and I had to find a place to put it. So this obnoxious path is almost where I put this module. I have Metasploit installed under opt Metasploit. And under that, we have apps, pro, MSF3, modules, exploits, Windows. That is the default installation for these modules in Metasploit. So if I do an ls here, you'll see I have different kinds of exploits. I don't have a real good classification for this, and this is also experimental, so I might want to section it off. And what I did is I just created a directory here called Dr. Phil. So if I look in Dr. Phil, do an ls, I will see there's one file, vulnserver.rb. It's readable and writable by root, and it's readable by everyone else. So this should be sufficient for everyone else to run this exploit in Metasploit. I've already run Metasploit console, which you can do from the command line by typing msf console. Now, I'm actually running Metasploit here on my Ubuntu system. Some of you might prefer to run this on Kali. It's not that difficult to install on Ubuntu. And I just prefer Ubuntu in terms of running Linux day to day over Kali. But do what you like. So now what I need to do is I need to load my new module. So I just type use, and I want to use an exploit. And Metasploit supports tab completions. And before I do this, I just wanted to point out really quickly, when it starts up, it gives you a little information. It says there are 1,332 exploits, 722 auxiliary modules, 214 post-exploitation modules, 340 different payloads, 35 encoders, which you can use to try to hide your exploits, and 8 knobs. So again, it will use more than just hex 90 for knobs in order to avoid detection. So I want to use an exploit, and it's a Windows exploit. There's only one under Dr. Phil, and it's vulnserver. Once I do that, you'll notice that my prompt changed, and it says exploit vulnserver. And if I want to see what options it takes, I can say show options. And it has an option for remote host. It also has a remote port, which is defaulted to 9999. And notice there's one target, vulnserver 1.0. From here, I can set our host to my address. This is the address of my XP machine, which is already up and going with the vulnserver running. And now I can set a payload, and I can choose a payload. Now, if I don't know what payloads are compatible with this particular exploit, I can do show payloads, and it will give me a list. And in this case, it's going to be a very long list because I have a lot of space that I could put in my payload, my shellcode. If you look into Metasploit a little bit, you'll find if you have a larger payload, it is actually done in stages. So what happens is they send just a little bit of code that's enough to load the next stage. And they keep on ratcheting it up until they have enough space for something huge like the Meterpreter, which is a very full-featured meta shell. I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to select Meterpreter. So I'm going to say set payload Windows/Meterpreter. And now I need to choose how I want to run Meterpreter. A good choice is a reverse bind. And here's what we mean by a reverse bind. In a reverse bind situation, my machine will set up a listening process and the victim machine will connect to it. And this is desirable because it often will avoid firewalls that get in the way. Most firewalls are configured to block traffic going in and nothing going out. So I'll go ahead and say I want to do a reverse TCP. And now if I say show options, I see that the new options for the payload would include the listening host. So I will say set lhost and then type in my address. I can check everything one last time with show options. Everything looks good. And then I just type exploit. And boom, there you have it. It says one interpreter session opened. I can list processes on that machine. I can do all kinds of fun things. I could do a screenshot, and that can be useful for things such as determining whether or not the machine is idle. There are a whole bunch of commands. If you type help, you will get a list. So here's just a few of them. So you can background your process, you can exit, you can interact with your shell if you have more than one, you can migrate to a new process, write files, download files, upload files, edit files. I can dump all of the password hashes. I can get information on the networking. There's just a lot of stuff that you can do. So, for example, I can do a hash dump, and here are the hashes for all of the users on that machine. I can then take those and put them into my password cracking programs, etc. So there's a lot you can do. And why do you want to create a Metasploit module? It is very flexible. I can set up different payloads that are appropriate to any given situation. And if IP addresses and things like that change, I don't have to rewrite my scripts. And also, let's say there's another version of Vuln server that is slightly different enough that I need to rewrite my exploit script. I can just show that as a new target. So if I type info here, there's just the one target, target 0. I could have a second target. I could also tweak some of these variables. And notice I didn't need to do anything extra. I didn't need to handle what happens later. And I didn't need to worry so much about the payload and all of that.